Hey friends, I am back with another episode in the Truth About series. And today I'm going to be talking about trust, but in two different ways. And so I'll start off with just like your basic idea of trust, right? Um, Trust is by definition like the firm belief in or reliability, ability, or strength of someone or something, often involving like a confident reliance on their character. And so, part of what I want to talk about is the kind of trust that we should have between each other, I guess, as humans, not just as friends or anything, but really like as human beings. Like, God calls us to be strong in character and to have a foundation built on Him. God is truth. His word is truth. Therefore, if you're following His word and you're following the things that He wants you to do, you have to be truthful. And so that's one of the key aspects of trust is being truthful, and not just truthful, but consistent in your truthfulness. And that comes from a couple different places in the Bible. Obviously, we're not supposed to lie. We know every liar has a place in the lake of fire. And I said a lot of this in the Truth About Words, but um, there is no like little lies. God will have us be accountable for every word that we say. And we have Jesus in the New Testament telling them in the Sermon on the Mount that let your yes be yes and your no be no. Like, whatever is more than that is from the evil one, is what he says. So, with very simple things, questions, and things like that, we should be able to just give a yes account or a no account and that be that. But then also, sometimes I think it goes deeper than that because we live in a society that's really good at being present sometimes and not always in person. It's easy to be present through a text message or online and, yeah, let's do this or yeah, let's do that. And then when it comes time to do those things, there's a disconnect and people don't really want to show up. They don't want to inconvenience themselves to actually do what they said they were going to do. And that is really difficult for building trust in relationships, especially whenever it's a newer relationship where we're trying to build up or rebuild trust. Whenever people say they're going to do things, it's good to be able to count on them to do the things that they say they're going to do. And I didn't always take that very seriously. I will say I have always been like one to show up for people and do the things, but I used to do it a lot more on my schedule and not be very considerate of how that might inconvenience other people or make them feel. And so, especially now, I try to be super aware of that. And I try to let my yes really mean yes and my no really mean no. Like, if I say that I'm going to do something, I want to be able to be counted on. I want people to say with certainty, like, oh no, she said she'll be here, she'll be here. She said she'll do that for you, she'll absolutely do that for you. And not just to show that, like, I'm a good person or anything like that, but to show that God has really changed me, especially if you knew me before. Like, He's really changed me to be able to put myself on the back burner for other people. So I take that pretty seriously, and I do think that it's like a very, very important aspect of building trust. And, like I said, in some cases, maybe building trust back. But it's also important because it's what Jesus said to do. And when Jesus was giving these sermons, he was speaking in parables because he wanted it to be like super simple. And like, how much more simple does it get besides your yes is a yes and your no is a no? Like, that is how you become trustworthy. I just think that Jesus really wanted it to be like that simple, that people that want to be considered persons of good character should be naturally just like truthful so that they don't have to give any extra account. They don't have to swear or, promise or offer up any kind of extra explanation because they're that trustworthy. And I think that extends into all aspects of your life when it comes to like showing up for people, when it comes to showing up to work, when it comes to showing up for friends and family or events or things that you said that you would do. I think that when you say you're going to show up for your kids or when you say you're going to do something, that people should just be able to depend on that. And in those small little moments where you don't really realize it, you're actually building big trust with people and they know that they can count on you for little things. They know that they can count on you for big things. The Bible says that whoever can be trusted with a little bit can also be trusted with a lot. And that is, something that I have kind of been working on in all aspects of my life is just being a good steward of all things. I don't have, like the biggest, fanciest house or the best of anything really, but I try to treat it like it is. And I try to be just as thankful for it as I would be if it were $1 million mansion because I know that God has maybe entrusted me with a little bit now, but I trust in his promise that someday he's going to entrust me with a lot. And whether that's earthside or not doesn't really matter to me. It may not be until I get to heaven that I get to see the fullness of the blessings that he has for me, and that's okay. That's kind of the second part of trust that I wanted to get into. It's yes, we should be doing a good job of building trust between each other as humans and doing all the things. And that's important because God calls us to be of good moral character. He wants us to be, you know, good people, good lights, good examples for Him, for His kingdom. If we're out here being dishonest about things, big or small, it doesn't look good if we claim God's name. If we say, oh, yeah, I walk with God. If we're not at the very least being honest and truthful and, just careful and in all things that we do, big and small, because like I said, if we can be trusted with a little bit, God will trust us with a lot. I just think at the very minimum, God is expecting us to be of good moral character and to be honest, to be truthful, to be, you know, able to be trusted with a little bit so that when it comes to big matters that we are also able to be trusted. And, it builds up a sense of security between people whenever there's that trust, whenever there's that reliability. And that's what Jesus was talking about. He's telling us that small daily acts of faithfulness are the building blocks of bigger trust. When we want bigger blessings, when we want God to trust us to do the big things, we have to be willing to do those tiny little things in consistency. And obviously there is forgiveness and repentance and all the things whenever we don't, but that's also where it comes into like trusting God. We have to trust God in his true character and the things that he says so that we can essentially like make other people more important than us. And I know you're probably thinking like, well, I don't know if I want to do that. Like that that's what being like Jesus is. That's what being a follower of Christ is. It's prioritizing the needs of others above your own self, a sacrificial love that says, you know what, regardless of how uncomfortable this might make me, I trust in the goodness of God. So when we make mistakes or when things happen, God has already given us the answer on how to deal with that. He tells us, first of all, don't lean into your own understanding. Lean into Him, acknowledge Him in all of your ways, and He'll direct us toward our purpose. He will direct us towards the things that He has for us. And sometimes those things are uncomfortable because I'll be the first to admit we can make mistakes along the way that are hard. They're hard to deal with. They're hard to tell people about. They're hard to admit because sometimes maybe I don't know, maybe they're embarrassing or maybe they feel like a failure. And so it's way easier to try to avoid those things. And if the devil would have his way, we would just avoid all of it and care about our own feelings over anything else and care about our own pride over anything else and not subject ourselves to the hard things because self-preservation. And that's really easy. It's easy to try to preserve the self. Like that's basic human nature. That's what we spend every probably like waking moment doing subconsciously, like without even really trying. That's what you're always trying to do. You're always trying to preserve yourself, preserve your image, preserve your reputation. Maybe not always. You're not. I'm saying these things out loud and I'm thinking there's definitely people I know that aren't doing these things. But, you know, at the end of the day, these things are important to most people. They are important to most people. And I think they're especially important and should be especially important to followers of God because He calls us to be set apart. He wants us to be different than the world. We're not supposed to be identical to everybody. There's supposed to be something so set apart about us and so different about us that the world can tell there's something different in us. One of my favorite songs is Micah Tyler's song Different. And it literally says, I just want to be different. I want to be changed till all of me is gone and all that remains is a fire so bright that the whole world can see that there's something different. So come and be different in me. And the whole song is an amazing song. I won't sit here and quote it because I don't know if you're even allowed to do stuff like that on podcasts, but go check it out. It's a great song. And it is literally been an anthem in my life is let me be different. And it's taken a lot of work for me to be different. I have not always depended on God the way that I do now. I have not always trusted Him in the way that I do now. And I've not always walked in like discernment and understanding the way that I do now. I have unfortunately spent a lot of time thinking that I knew best. And I have made a lot of rough choices in self preservation that probably were not in line with what God wanted me to do at all. When I think about how my trust in God has changed over the years, it reminds me of the story of Naaman in the Bible. And he goes to Elijah's house and he is trying to figure out how he's going to get healing. A messenger comes out to tell him, go wash in the Jordan River 7 times. Naaman is furious. He thinks that Elijah was going to come out and personally call out to God and, pray on his behalf and get him this healing. And instead, he is told, no, go get in this river, dunk yourself 7 times, it'll be all good. And in his earthly mind, he's like, there's literally way better rivers that I could go clean myself in. That doesn't, and I'm just like thinking in my modern day mind, can you even imagine if you have some terrible skin infection and someone tells you to go dunk yourself in the Missouri River 7 times, over some natural spring or some beautiful clear water, and just like how that would even feel to consider that that's the answer to your problem, you know what I mean? But that answer was from God, was to go dunk yourself 7 times in the Jordan River. So at first, Naaman's not trying to do that. He's telling him like, hey, I'm not sure. Eventually he goes and does it, and guess what? Instantly he's healed because God doesn't need our earthly thinking or our comprehension in order to work His will. That's what I've learned very, very well over the last several years is that all the plans that I have, all the ways that I think that God is going to work things out for me, are rarely the ways. I, think about times that I've been down on my last dollar and I'm like, oh my goodness, the only way I could ever multiply this money is to like go buy a dollar scratcher and just hope to goodness that I win $1,000 because there's just no other way. You know what I mean? There's no foreseeable way in my tiny imagination that that's going to work out. And so many times God has just come through in amazing and miraculous ways. And it's not always about money, but money is tough to come by, especially when you're not a full-time worker and you are self-employed and you just depend fully on God to help with things like that. There are, times where cars break down or things happen. I'm literally dealing with a car situation now, but it's just all these details that God has worked out make for an amazing testimony to share and to spread more of his love and to spread more truth about the ways in which he is a good father and the ways in which he does care about us and the ways in which that we truly can trust in him to fulfill all of our needs. And that's that's the second part about truth is we have to really be willing to trust God, to trust that God is who he says he is, that he does what he says he will do, that he provides when he says he'll provide, that he, is a comforter when we're in our times of need, that he is a loving father in the times that we need correction and guidance, that he is just a supplier of all the things, of all the healing and all of the love and all of the goodness that we're needing and that we're seeking and all these different things. It's not always easy to really trust God, to really come to terms with some of the situations that we get ourselves in and to be truly honest, not just with God, but with other believers so that we can, start that healing process with them so that we can get prayer and help from other people that truly love us and that truly love God. There's so much that goes into trust and that goes into, building that trust. But it all begins with truth. It all begins with God doing things God's way, using the truth in God's way, using truth and love, not just ignoring things because of love, but truly being able to acknowledge things in love, difficult things, difficult situations, and difficult decisions, all in a loving way that God has called us to do. And that's how we set a good example. That's how we shine a light for the rest of the world is by following God's truth, following God's way and doing things his way so that we can live abundantly in his truth and the things that he says. And so I just encourage you to work on building trust, maybe where it's been broken, maybe where it's lacking, maybe where you just want to see it grow, and start trusting in God. Put your trust in him first. See if he doesn't multiply your ability to trust in others and your ability to be trusted by others. And so I'll be praying for you all, and you be praying for me too.